Get ready for a Tommy Turbo Masterclass. Tameless Tuesday is here. And the boys are hard as a rock. Don't be a weak-gutted dog. Leave that for Jermaine Salmon. Get ready for the best SuperCoach show on the planet. It's so good, it's better than Lego. You're now listening to the SuperCoach Experience Podcast. Here's your host, Brandon Savage.
What is up, and welcome back to the SuperCoach Experience Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Savage, the coach of Still Yet to Be Decided. I can't believe I'm leading with that every single week.
Yeah, hurry up, make your mind up, mate. Put some feelers out.
I know, I've got to wait until the bloody SuperCoach app opens, but surely I've had 6 months to think about it. I think it's going to be the Jermaine Salmons again, just because I love how that week got a dog scenario went out, and I just like being the Jermaine Salmons. Anyway, enough about me. We're here for the second row forward episode of SuperCoach. I'm joined here by the 2021 champion, the coach of the Villy Army. He knows what he's up to. He's being assertive. His name is Tim Moody. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Yeah, as I was saying, I was watching a little thing on the weekend about not letting people cut you off or talk over you sort of thing. So if I start speaking really loud or something like that, I'm just following the lessons I learned. Look, I'm not going to try and apply that. It was just a thing that I came across when we were talking about it. So
I was actually, I was looking at the headphones, and I was going to put the headphones on because I heard on Joe Rogan that apparently if you wear headphones, you're less likely to cut people off. And I didn't like how nerdy you kind of look with headphones on. So
you're like one of those kids that didn't wear a helmet, eh?
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Too cool for school.
I was nerdy enough as it was. So, anyway, we are on the second row forwards today, but I want to preface this first. 500 to 800K players. It's going to become juicy next week. It's going to become very juicy next week. But I think for now, second row forwards, it's still a hot talking point, and I'm very excited to talk about the middies, but there's just so much. We can't cram it in one episode and give it out to you guys with...
Yeah, it'd be too chaotic.
With the amount of detail.
Brush over crap.
Exactly. With the amount of detail we want to go through, we want everyone to be most well-informed for their decisions going forward in SuperCoach. And SuperCoach will open around next week, so I think it's only fitting that we have the second row forward mid-range episode drop the week SuperCoach drops. So I think that's a nice time for it to drop. But... firstly, YouTube, we started the preseason with 1190 subscribers. We're now up to 1370, so we've jumped nearly 200, nearly 100 since last episode, so that's been awesome. So if you head over to our YouTube, the SuperCoach Experience, make sure to subscribe to that. And if you are watching on YouTube, please go over to the audio platforms and follow us on there so you get all the updates and get all the Impromptu podcasts, which will come throughout the preseason. I think, especially when big events happen and like big SuperCoach news happens and it's all chaotic. Tuesday to Tuesday is such a long period, isn't it?
It is in the SuperCoach world. It feels like a long time to wait just for the weekend to come and, get the feet up and start counting those SuperCoach points.
So we actually talked about the front rows last week, and an article has just come out. Payne Haas is on the casualty ward list. He's injured.
Okay. What sort of injury? How long?
It's behind a paywall, so I have not gotten access to it right now. So here we go. Zero Tackle have posted it. Hamstring concern. So it's obviously not a massive hamstring injury. Sounds like he should be right for round one, but still...
one to follow.
Still one to follow. If you were a bit concerned about starting with a Payne Haas at the 750k mark, it's a little bit of a talking point. Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll just keep an eye on that, and NRL physio is probably a great person to see what he reckons.
He didn't see the footage of it happening, so he's not much help, is he?
Oh, maybe someone can describe it to him.
All right, and we've also got Haumole come out with an article this week. Well, not him, but the NRL come out with an article saying he's ready to go. He wants to be fitter than ever, and he wants to take this opportunity with both hands, which I had a few people tag me in this post on Facebook, and I think I'm locked into Haumole. That's a change in my team that I wanted to point out.
Yep.
Are you locked in?
No, I'm not locked into anything. I've decided I need to be very, very open to everything and, not disregarding anything. So it's very early stages. I think at this point, I just want to do my homework, take in information. Things are going to adapt and change a fair bit. But, there's some players that I'm more sort of thinking I know where I'm at with them than others. So, yeah.
For sure. All right, let's get it kicked off with the second rowers. So I'm going to start off with the top 5 second row forward options, and we'll go through that, and then we'll pretty much pick off every other option that there are up to that 500K price mark.
Yeah, I think we've kind of identified that we probably want to start mainly with middies, but there probably is plenty of reason to at least start with one solid second rower. I think plenty of people might be looking at doing that as well, so trying to pick which one of those.
I think with all the mid-price options that are available at the moment, I think there's a world where you can start with these premium second row forwards. I think just one of them, though. It's in the second row. I don't think it's realistic to start with two of them.
The reason I say that before we get into those guys is just because of the Dave Fifita situation. So I'm thinking like he's 850 something K or
yep.
Yeah. So if we don't start with him, he may be available week 1. We might be reluctant still with the Peck, see what sort of minutes if they do sort of go in with him hard to start with, how he actually looks. If he starts. First game with house on fire, we're probably all going to be wanting to rush him in so we don't miss out on those big points because you can get those tons and 120s real quick. If we've all got the middies, it's going to be hard to who we're going to then drop. We're going to have to drop one of our other guns like a premium Harry Grant to a midi sort of guy to be able to afford that, or a gun fullback. So if we've got one premium guy there, it might only be 150K jump, which might be easier to make that trade if we do need to rush for feeder in. So that's why I'm kind of thinking I might be keeping an eye on at least having maybe one around the top tier and then the rest mids.
Yeah, I think I've been pretty open with saying I'm starting with Haumole Olakau'atu, and I haven't moved from that since day one.
So you've been very locked to that.
So I've been very locked to that. So. Okay. I'm pretty locked.
I've done my homework on that, and I reckon I don't want to talk you out of it, but I just
but we're talking about David Fifita now. Yeah. I'm getting to the David Fifita point. New coach, Desi Hasler. He's been known to kind of mess around SuperCoach wise with his forwards. We know Tino's a big watch considering what he's done to Gerbo and James Graham in the past. But do we know that Dave Fifita is definitely playing on the left side where he absolutely killed it last year? With Beau Fermor coming back into the side, which is another option we're going to speak about in the next episode. With Beau Fermor coming back from an ACL surgery, we don't know if he's locked into the left or the right. And the fact he's going to be injured and we're not going to catch any preseason form or preseason indications. I think Beau Fermor is a massive watch, so we'll see what side he plays. But it could be a case where Beau Fermor slots in on the left when Fifita's not there because he's so versatile, and we're all kind of thinking, Fifita's going to play on the left on the right because Fermor's lined up in the trials. Yep. But because he's so versatile, Fifita might just get named on the left in round 1 anyway.
Yeah, I think it's hard until anyone actually gets solid information that they share. It's pretty much speculation. Holbrook seemed to favour Fermor on the left, but had played on the right as well and seemed quite interchangeable. But with Fifita having such a great season on the left last year with Foz there, 5'8", I think maybe thinking is why change that, but that's still just speculation. So,
yeah, for sure.
Definitely want him on the left, though.
I think obviously,
if you're having him,
obviously, if gun to head right now, you would assume Dave Fifita plays on the left because Beau Fermor is someone you don't accommodate. You'd
probably have him in your side either side, though.
Yeah, you don't move Fifita to accommodate for Beau Fermor's preferred position. Yeah. You do it the other way around, but. The thing with Desi Hasler is he's such a mad scientist that left side was so dominant with Foran, that Brian Kelly and Campiera absolutely dominate on that left edge. And I think it'd be crazy to break up Fifita and Campiera because the amount of cutout balls, oh my God. I think it'd be crazy to break that up, but in his head, he's probably thinking, okay, teams are marking up that left edge. We need strike on both sides of the field, and we need to make sure we're dangerous. I think Fifita is a great SuperCoach option, whatever side of the field he's on. Is he worth $850K if he lines up on the right? He will be eventually, but...
definitely on the left. I definitely want him on my side on the left. On the right, I could maybe wait and see how it goes.
You could wait because he's still got that explosive behaviour, but if he is on the left, he's that kind of guy that really scares you. When he's on the right, he's still a great SuperCoach option, and dare I say, still probably one of the better second row forwards in the competition, SuperCoach-wise.
If he does play on the right this year and on the left, it's a little bit of a worse thing from what we had last year. But then again, we're picturing David Fifita on the right from 2022, where he was a bit quieter and not really going looking for work. Whereas if he can be the 2023 David Fifita and still be busy coming from the right and looking for work and stuff, I still think that he'd be close to worth that. But yeah, I think that at that price, if he's playing round one, I don't know, I'm thinking maybe you just want to do it, eh?
It's a hard pass for me, to be honest.
Yeah,
just because of all the uncertainty. And with Dave Fifita, if he is playing on the left, 2021 is a good example. We had all them massive SuperCoach scores, Tommy Turbo, Ryan Pappenhausen, and James Tedesco. There was Nathan Cleary, Nico Hines. All these massive SuperCoach scores. There was all them players above, and then Fifita sat there in that year as well. He was interchanging between the left and the right most times, but I remember this game vividly. He scored like a hat-trick in the first half against the Rabbitohs. He was playing on the left that game, and then towards the season they shifted him to the right, and it was all kind of a mess. So whatever he does line up with in round one, I think that's what we expect.
So maybe, like as I sort of mentioned before, maybe if you do just have one of those top tier guys, and if he does kill at round one, then rush him in the week after. But then you kind of also want to get those cheapies and stuff as well, or whoever you've missed that sort of nailed it. I just wanted to bring up this stat that I've written down here. So David Fifita last year didn't get a ton until round 9, but he had all decent scores leading up to then. So he had 83, 69, 49, 96, 76, 82 and 84. So you'd want all of those basically except for the 49, but you'd still take that.
Dropping the ball, mate.
Sorry about that. But then once he did get the ton, they didn't stop. He scored them consecutively. He went 114, 100, 111, 116. He had a 16 score in 33 minutes, so maybe an injury or something there.
That I remember that. That was coming off Origin.
Okay.
They gave him, I think he only played 33 minutes. He came off the bench.
So quite a little role there. But even just straight after that game, went straight back into 121, 107. Then round 20, he dropped off quite significantly into 60s, couple of 80s and 90s and stuff. So maybe if he does follow that similar pattern, it's not a panic stations if we didn't start with him for a couple of bits, if he did just copy and pasted it. But, you want those tons. And, I'd be happy enough. Like those 80s, 90s, he's getting early. You're paying what you get for him at the start anyway. You're paying $850.
I actually think from the year before when he was not kind of a must-have player in everyone's side, he did quite similar. So the start of the season, he scored 60, 54, 72, 53. You take that, but a lot of people paid up for David Fifita.
Yeah, they were a bit annoying scores.
They paid $750K premium price. So everyone was thinking after that 53 against the Tigers, do I sell him? And a lot of people sold him that week. He went on 107, 120 after that, and then pretty much didn't really fire a shot for the rest of the season. But I think from them stats there, when Dave Fifita's hot, he's hot, but it also takes him a little bit to get used to it. So he does have that initial price drop, but I think the lesson here is don't wait too long on him. Always have him in your plans. So if you are going to go without him, don't go without a Nathan Cleary or something that you're going to have to get in at a similar time. So I really like that we've had that chat because it makes me personally more aware that Dave Fifita is someone you've probably got to get at some point. And It's just
early.
The injury concern. Once we get over that and we know that he's still playing 80 minutes and he's still playing a dominant role in the Titans side, he's a no-brainer. You don't have to tell people that Dave Fifita is a good player.
Tell me this, if he was to sort of, people were thinking, I might want to see him drop a little bit, what sort of scores would he need to go on consecutively for him to drop enough for you to be worth it? Like a couple of, like 360s, 460s in a row?
So he's pretty much at an 80, 84 average. If he gets 360s in a row, he'll lose a bit of money. As we saw from the 2021 year, where he started really, really overpriced. And a lot of people, not overpriced, but a lot of people jumped on him in 2022. He was 745K. He went down to 673K, and that was in round 4.
Okay.
And that was his only price drop in that period. So he went back up to 750 straight away.
Titans, from memory, have one of the best draws. I know we don't like to overlook. We don't want to look too much into the draw, but I think they've got the best draw to start the first 6 weeks. So that kind of makes it a little bit harder to...
So the last 2 years, they've had a really good draw as well.
Yeah.
So I think we're getting the absolute best case scenario in the last 2 years for the first 3 rounds at least. So I think... I also remember...
New coach could be everyone's trying a bit different,
True.
You know what I mean? They've got to do new fresh attitude.
Could go the other way, though. They could be, defensive-minded. But with Dave Fifita, he is someone I remember starting with, and he was getting these 80s and 70s to start the year, which is probably a bit less than you want when you're paying that much.
Yeah, you want the 100 just to be a bit...
Yeah, exactly.
Nailed
but
it, yeah.
At the same time, I remember being an owner, being like, thank God I got Fifita. Because I was just so comfortable having him. But I also think this year, with all the value in the second row area, it's just... It's all a balancing act. The number 2 option that I've gone with is Haumole Olakau'atu. And I see your skepticism.
I think he's a great SuperCoach player.
Yeah, I just have a massive feeling for him this year. And it's not only a feeling. He averaged 61.6 in the first 6 rounds last year. So he started really hot. His total average for the season was 63.8. And that was bumped up massively. Oh, sorry. It was 68.5, but them last 2 games... No, sorry, that last game bumped him up to a 68. So let's just say, without that 177 score, his average is 63.8.
Well, what I'd like to do instead is we've got him at 68. So I've taken off the top and the bottom score, to be fair.
Yep. So
taken off the 177 and the 34. That drops his average to 59.75. Yeah. So...
okay. Based on that, he averaged 61.6 in the first 6 rounds. I'm just going off the first 6 rounds because you're only going to be able to have one of these guys for the first 4, 5, 6 rounds.
And he might be right now that I was real against him, but now that we think we might need someone to go to Fifita, he might be that guy that's close enough in price and still you want to have a little dig at to start with. So I'm not completely off it, but I just don't. Yeah, I think that last game is my sort of main argument that people are a bit influenced by that last game last season where he scored 100 billion points. Yeah.
And now looking at the stats here, my argument is he averaged 61.6 in the first 6 weeks. His total average was 68.5, so you're only missing out on 7 points, whereas all these other guys, you're missing out on 13 to 15 points because they usually start slow in the second row. But, you know, the value's there, and he is likely to keep up with that value, especially if you're looking to go to Dave Fifita quite early.
Potentially paying his value and maybe a little bit more, because we have identified that he's average. I know you said his average was 63 to start the season, but that's still a little bit.
No, 63 without the big score.
Without the big one, but we've decided we're taking that out, right? Because that's not in the first 6 weeks anyway.
Yeah, but he's still priced with that big score, so you've kind of got to know what you're paying for him.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So this is some of the stats I've just pulled up on him from last year, that he didn't have any other tons other than that final round. Like that final round, he scored 177 or whatever it was. Didn't have any other tons for the year. Didn't score any scores in the 90s and only had 4 scores in the 80s. 3 of which were low 80s, 80, 81, and 81 again. There was 189 there. So I see this guy as a solid 55 to 75 point player. And so when I was thinking with the middies that if we were just looking at middies, stick to them, because I reckon some of these guys, if you pick the right ones, are probably going to go close enough to 55 to 70, maybe not 75-ish, but yeah, you could get lucky with the 75. But yeah, I don't mind him as a guy to go to Fifita with, but I just don't see those tons. I just don't see them.
Yeah, and I also agree with you. I remember the first 6 weeks, some people started with him, and he was someone I wasn't scared to not own. Even though he scored like a double in the second week, he scored a try in the first week. He was scoring tries and getting attacking stats, but then big scores still weren't coming because a lot of them weren't coming from line breaks.
And he's probably going to like make Origin and stuff.
It just feels like this is going to be easy. He's just signed the contract. The microscope's going to be under him now. It's a feeling. Sometimes you got to go with these feelings that you get sometimes.
Yep. All right, cool. I'm not trying to talk you out, but I think he will score a ton this year, probably even 2 or 3 of them. But I'm just saying, there's only that one big one last year, and there still wasn't any 90s either. So
yeah, there's also a lot of red flags there. Like considering he is a premium option, he's $700K. There's a lot of red flags there. So potentially, I mean, if he wasn't the price he was and he was a mid-ranger, you'd 100% go for it.
Oh, for sure.
Like, let's say it was the same price as Fifita. There'd be no way you go there because you're not confident.
Yeah, no way.
And you've got Fifita.
A little bit less, like 620 or 630 maybe, but it's basically 700. So I'm a little bit off it unless I was deciding that he was the right guy to pick out of all the others to go to Fifita very early if I needed to make that shift, which we've talked about. But yeah, I might still find someone else instead of him though.
My number 3 option I've gone with is Cameron Murray. I've actually done a late switch. It was Jermaine Hopgood before, but I've gone Cameron Murray, and mainly because the Rabbitohs tend to go with their seasons. We know the Roosters religiously start slow. Penrith religiously start relatively slow to build into the season. Rabbitohs come in nice and hot, and then they have a plateau through the middle of the period where they have that rest, and then they try to time their run at the back end of the season to make sure they come through. So in the first...
I don't know about Penrith starting too slow. That's
not too slow for
maybe lose 1 out of the 3 or 4 games.
Well, they lost to the Broncos, Parramatta and the Rabbitohs in the first 5 weeks. That's slow last year.
Yeah, right. But not all the time.
But like you knew that there was, yeah. Anyway, the first 6 weeks, Cameron Murray, his minutes, 80 minutes, 60 minutes, 67 minutes, 82 minutes, 72 minutes, and 75 minutes. And after that, he dropped off to about 65 to 70 minutes every week until after Origin, where as soon as he come back from Origin, he averaged about 75 minutes.
He started well last year?
Started very well. So he started...
Those points translated within the minutes?
84 in 80 minutes, 40 points in 60 minutes. That was against Penrith. 61 points in 67 minutes, 60 points in 82 minutes, 88 points in 72 minutes, and 85 points in 75 minutes. So the points and the minutes, that they directly correlate most of the time. I guess Penrith, they do play Penrith early, but I kind of like Murray against the better teams because they're the type of teams he'll definitely keep their minutes
Roll
against.
His sleeves up to make sure he's leading for the boys.
But yeah. I really like him. I thought as an option last year, he was really frustrating because he kept getting them 40 scores just before Origin. So I think at that point, Rabbitohs that's when they ease the brake and they're looking to accelerate at the end of the season. But obviously, it didn't work out last year. And they missed the top 8. So
I think he can lack upside. Is there many big ones in him, like last year or the year before?
No tons last year.
I feel like if you're getting him for that 70, 80 or even high 65 on a bad day, you're happy. But when you are getting, I felt those 40s and 50s were too consistent.
Yeah, I agree. But
he's just someone that I feel like other people often talk about getting. I get a bit nervous because I'm not really into it. I feel like it never really hurts me, but
Yeah, but he's the type of player that he gets attacking stats and you're like, of course, like he was an option this week. He scored a try. He's gone over. I like him. The year before, he scored 2 big tons, 129 and 130.
Nice.
Early on in the season, he absolutely killed it. 54, 76, 129, 76, 56, 73, 82, 83.
That's 22, is it? Or
In 22. So in the first 8 weeks, he averaged 78, which it doesn't matter if you're getting these big tons or not. If you're averaging 80, that's the same as the guy that's getting the big tons. Are you going to captain Fifita? Probably. I mean, last year I captained.
Early, if you've only got a couple of guns, like you've only got a hook, half, 5'8", fullback, depending on draw potentially.
Yeah.
Especially with a good draw, if Fifita's proved it, well, possibly. He's an option, whereas Cam's not. But
yeah,
he's always a stupid guy that you can just rely on.
And
except for, I just feel last year I felt that not so much at times. There was a bit of frustrating.
It just felt like last year he turned into someone who, when you have that moment of realization that maybe this guy is never going to be a SuperCoach player, like a SuperCoach player for us. I had that moment with Katoni Staggs last year.
But Cam Murray's always been a SuperCoach player.
He always has been, but last year I had that moment where I questioned, is this the point where we just never consider Cameron Murray again? But then obviously in the back end of the season, the minutes came up and...
Bit Gerbo-y sort of style.
Yeah, he was passing a lot at that point, and I think that's why the question came up. I think they're going to rectify that, the Rabbitohs.
He's cheapish for his standards. Like, I mean, you can often find him cheaper throughout the year. Like, he'll have, like, if he does go on that little bit of a couple of weird games. But that's not bad.
639,000 compared to Olakau'atu, 699. You're saving 60K there. And, I mean, if we're happy with Olakau'atu averaging 63 in the first 6 weeks, then...
He's 80 or whatever.
Cameron Murray... I could nearly guarantee that he averages that, right?
Through the middle. You'd hope so, yeah.
And with Cameron Murray, he's based at about...
You'd hope so to start the season. It's not pre to Origin or anything like that. Doesn't have any... Hopefully he's fresh and stuff. Yeah, okay.
Cameron Murray is based on a 62.6 average. In the first 6 weeks, he averaged 70. The year before, 80 in the first 8.
Okay.
So... But based on all the options we're talking about, Cameron Murray is the best value.
Souths have a kind of tough draw, which you kind of like because you said as he puts his hand up for the bigger games sort of thing. Yeah, okay, cool. Yep, I think he's an option.
And I'm quoting the Rugby League Guru here. We love quoting other podcasts on this podcast. But apparently at every Souths function, weeks/months after they got bowed out in the finals and Australia lost to New Zealand, everyone had kind of got over it, and Cameron Murray was just pissed about it, didn't want to talk about it. So the fact that he's got that fire in his belly to become better this year, and he's the captain of their side.
Yeah. So
he's someone who... It really excites me, that kind of bounce back factor. Personally, as a player, he doesn't really need that bounce back factor because he proved himself. He works his ass off every week, but I think team-wise, he's going to want to get up and set an example for the boys. So I think I wouldn't say talked myself into it, but I'm heavily considering swapping Olakau'atu for him.
If you need to, for affordability or whatever, yep.
And he's not that far off for Fifita either.
Whereas, yeah, if Olakau'atu doesn't get those attacking stats, it could be a little bit of a slower start.
It could be a 50 average.
Yeah. Okay. What's your next one?
My number 4 is Jermaine Hopgood. He's priced at a 73.3 average, and we saw he kicked off the season with 2 big tons last year. The thing that concerns me is he was playing massive minutes. Sean Lane is back. He's not injured this year, so maybe we don't know what that exact rotation looked like last year just because he was so in and out, Sean Lane. But I still want him there at number 4 just because I think when they did have all hands on deck, his role was still similar. Still offloaded always played above 60 minutes. So as a middle forward, consistently playing above 60 minutes and someone with his game, I think he deserves to be at 4. But yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on Jermaine Hopgood this year? It could be a bit of second-year syndrome as well.
If he started like he started last year, you'd want him, but he was scoring tons. Like, I don't know if it felt like 6 games in a row, but it might have only been 2 or 3. But it felt like he was just ripping and tearing. He did score 5 tons in the 96, so I don't know. It probably wasn't 5 tons to start the year.
So 2 tons start the year?
Yeah.
He kind of fell off, and he was a sell for a little bit, but then he scored 109 in round 9, and then round 17, 105, round 22, 104. So 101, 124, 45, 77, 47, 48, 61, 43. So first 8 rounds, an average of 68, but that's with them 2 big tons in the first 2 weeks. So
he's got such an intense work rate. I can't see him playing 80 minutes, though, hey?
Yeah, especially at the start of the season. And the Parramatta are also a team who fell out of the finals, so they're not going to want to do exactly what they did last year. They're going to...
Yeah. I think they depended on him playing 80 last year. Now that they can spread it around a bit, they might hope that he's just got more impact coming off the bench again if they start with Maddo or something else. You're right, you've got a... What do you call those?
A cramp.
Yeah, forget what those are called.
Oh, my hammies are tightened up.
That's rough. Do you want me to, push your toes or something, buddy?
Nah, it's all right. Speaking of hammy, SportShedTV charity match. Tickets are in the bio. He was announced today as the sports bet guy, Hammy?
Yeah.
He was announced today as the charity match referee.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
He'll be a funny ref.
Yeah, so tickets are in the bio. Make sure to head down there. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Sorry, but it's shameless. Yeah, shameless plug.
Yep, no dramas. Yeah, Hopgood for me, I think we're all going to have in our side at some point. You could pick him over the others, but I just think with the uncertainty around the minutes, you really need him to come on and he will rip and tear, but probably I can only see him getting sort of 60, 65s if he's only getting 60, 65 minutes.
If he's 600K, it's a different conversation. But the fact he's 750K, you've got guys like Murray and Olakau'atu that we can go to. And for an extra 100K, you can go for Fifita. So I think I am putting a line through him to start the year because I don't think the value's there straight away. And with the uncertainty...
As I said, I'm not going to put a line through anything at this stage. He might... there might be some sign from the universe or, maybe, for instance, injuries might happen at training or something with Para where he's now got an 80-minute role, so...
Yeah, and we're not worried about that because say an injury happens to one of the forwards, there's no way he can't play under a certain amount of minutes just because of the rotation there. And one injury happens to them forwards and 100% he's out. My number 5, this one was a bit hard. I think the top 4 are I'm pretty confident in the top 4. But number 5, I'm happy to put Briton Nikora there.
Yeah, I thought he might have been higher for you.
Yeah, with the draw of the Warriors, I know I feel like they're going to be a faller this year. Warriors, Bulldogs, Tigers, Raiders, Rabbitohs, Cowboys, Raiders,
nice game
Dragons.
Today.
So in the first 9 weeks, they've got a pretty good draw, and I know we've said it all preseason, don't look too far into the draw, but as you've said, they're more likely to score good points against these teams that we're not sure about than the teams like the Broncos and the Panthers who we know are going to be hard to crack their defense. Warriors round 1's an interesting one. I think they are going to fall, but he's a Kiwi, so that's always a plus for him. Bulldogs round 2. Obviously, not looking too far into the draw, but the fact he has that attacking upside, he did fall off last year, and it just seems like these type of guys who have this attacking upside really do their best work either early on in the season or late on in the season. And Briton Nikora is that kind of guy who does it early on by suggesting off the stats from last year.
Yeah, I was sort of thinking he might be someone that I would start with if I did start with one premium guy and it wasn't for Fifita, so I could turn Nikora into Fifita pretty urgently if I needed to. I sort of thought I might have preferred Nikora over Olakau'atu, as I sort of brought up, other than Olakau'atu's big 176. He had no 90s, 480s, and most of them were low 80s. Nikora had no tons, but he had 4 scores in the 90s.
He had a lot of 80s as well.
Yeah, so I like Olakau'atu too. This guy's just speed, and sometimes when you'd be running a line, I think it's a centre, or something. You know, he just does not. I don't think there's anyone else that's a second rower that would be as fast as him over like 30 metres. He's quick as, and then once he gets that little hole, and with Nico there, I just like it. Just like that little combo. So I reckon he's someone if I don't start with him, I'll probably be trying to get him in sooner or later too. I'm just a bit stressed about how hard it might be to get.
Didn't score a ton this season. Oh, sorry, last year.
Yeah.
Which is funny because he's someone you talk about upside, but he averaged 75 in the first 11 games. His season average was 69.6.
It felt like a real breakout year for him.
Yeah.
I felt like he previously in other years he'd be someone you kind of look at some point, but never really right up in the top of the main options that you'd consider for second row. But now he's right up in that conversation.
But you know why that is, why he was always looked at? It's because his game is so friendly to SuperCoach.
Yeah.
Like, he has that game when he gets it all together.
Nico coming along as well, just really enhanced
for
that.
sure.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, it took them a while at the start of the year in 2022, but 2023, obviously, that combination has come on a lot better. But Nico wasn't even playing in the first 3 weeks, and he still scored 92 and 81. So the fact that he's not relying on Nico
that's good.
is also a positive. In case Nico goes down, he's not going to be someone that you have to rely on. But looking at his scores here, 80 minutes second rower, we don't have to worry about the minutes. We don't have to worry about a new coach coming in, him changing sides. Last year was a breakout year for him. The only worry is...
I feel like he's on a continued upward direction. Yep.
Upward direction. So 710,000 based on a 69.6, average 75 in the first 11. Based on how we've been talking about things, it's probably value there. Especially considering Olakau'atu. Olakau'atu's got a bit of a trickier draw. What do you think? But both edge back rowers, both have good halfbacks inside them.
Yeah, I feel like I like Briton Nikora more than Olakau'atu to start the season. But as I said, I don't know. I might still stick with all middies, but I do feel like I'm leaning towards him. That's one guy I think I am leaning towards. If Fifita's just like all good to go, a couple of weeks out, so like, he's fine. You see him at training, he's like throwing blokes off like there's no tomorrow and stuff. I might just start with Fifita and not be all tentative and nervous around it. But if I'm a bit nervous, I think that's the way I'm going to go.
I did this list before we kind of discussed it. Briton Nikora number 5. I think based on discussion and talking points and all that sort of stuff, I think I'd shift my list. Olakau'atu's now at number 5 for me.
I don't think the order necessarily matters at this stage.
No,
we don't have to be...
No, it doesn't. He's probably number 4, Hopgood 5. To start the year, I'd probably go... I like Murray at 2. Just because the price, it's so much cheaper than all these other guys. And Nikora at 3. So that's probably where I'm putting everyone else. All right. So that's the top 5. So we're going to go through all the options down to 500K.
Most of.
There's one guy I missed in here. That's Tino. I think we talked about him in the front row.
Yeah, I think he's someone, if you are going to have him in your side, you probably start him at prop.
Yep. If
you're going to just pick him instead of Payne Haas or instead of the mid-year options that we've looked at there.
I don't mind starting with him in the second row to cover Flegler's bye in round 3.
Yeah.
But Tino also with Fifita, he has a bye in round 2. So I think that throws a spanner in the works.
That's awesome, mate.
it might mean if he's touch and go for round 1, he might not get named.
Probably won't. Why not just... Yeah.
Exactly. We said the same with Tommy last year. And
Yeah,
then,
true. But if he's ready to go, he's ready to go. Why not start the season with a win?
Exactly. Rehabilitate himself, and you got the week to... It's probably better that he plays that week.
Get the 2 points. Yeah.
But the fact that he got a bye in round 2, say he scores 100 in round 1, you don't have him round 2, you got to play a bench value option who scores 30 points. So that's 130 points over 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. You get one of these guys. Cameron Murray averages 70 in the first 4 weeks. That's already more points than Fifita. If Fifita comes back, scores 70, you're better off getting the guy who averages 70 over the first 4 or 5 weeks. I think a buy early really kills a keeper option. Unless it's Cleary or Nico or one of them big ceiling guys that you can't really get to easily with trades. But yeah,
the only reason it doesn't is if you do just start with him, that way you've got him. Everyone else is going, I'll get him after the bye. They want to, but then they've actually got to get these cheapies that everyone's talking about on every podcast. Yeah. And the break even, they've looked on their phone, they've gone, it's minus bloody whatever it is. I've got to get this guy. Fifita's going to have to wait. You know what I mean? And then that just keeps getting pushed back.
The good thing is Fifita has that buy and he doesn't have his price rise till that 4th week.
Yeah.
So if he does kill it, I mean, you're missing out on the scores, but at least if he's going to go up in price, which I don't think he does, to be honest. But interesting watch.
You have to just really nail it to go up.
All right, there's personally, I was planning this week to be all second rowers, so I'm glad we haven't done that because we've already been going for 40 minutes.
I told you.
You're a messiah. You're a messiah. So we'll go through these options. There's Isaiah Yeo is the only other guy in there, 704,000. Surprisingly, he did really good last year.
Yeah, hey, he was a serious option that I don't think most people had that we would sort of watch their sides and stuff. But I did hear other people asking about him all last year and stuff. But
I just always wrote it off.
Me too, because I'd never considered him in the past, just behind the attack of Cleary. It seemed he did have a lot of... passing in his game and not so many runs. And I didn't feel like he had the try assists and stuff, but maybe he was getting line break assists that we weren't really paying attention. And
shitload of try contributions.
Yeah.
But he was scoring a lot of tries last year.
I haven't really broken down his stats too much, except...
that's okay. I don't think we can go through all of them because they're...
All I do have is he's very consistent for 55 to 75, which is great. But you don't really need that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And
for sure.
Only 6 scores over 75. 1 score in the 90s.
Is that Yo?
Yeah.
So you wrote notes on him?
I did. Not a great deal, though.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good.
So, I didn't think he was for me again, but I'm happy to be proven wrong if he lights her up.
Yeah, sweet. You've got the list there, so do you want to kick it off? I've got all the mid-range options here, but...
Okay, so this next one I think there's Carrigan, very similar to Isaiah Yeo. He's very similar price as well, very similar player, very similar position, both in very good sides. Consistent, but I've still got the same lacks that upside, so I wouldn't recommend people starting with him.
There is an upside to Carrigan. I'm quite off people who play in the World Cup and have a late preseason, but I think as time and time goes on, you realise realistically they've had enough time to recover. Yeah. It's just the people who aren't used to not having the full preseason. Like we know Cleary's always going to have a short preseason from now. He's going to be right. Someone like Carrigan, he's going to be right having a short preseason. Same with Payne Haas, but with Flegler leaving and Payne Haas now under an injury cloud, I'm not sure where that leaves Payne Haas in round 1, but we'll keep an eye on that. Then Patrick Carrigan is the one guy in that pack that is a certainty.
Yeah, they need to rely on him, but I just see it still just being just work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just not really that attacky, but we'll see.
He's priced at a 67 average. He only averaged 60 in the first 12 weeks. and then he scored 100 in round 12.
I just mean, of all the other options, he's very close to 700k. There's a lot of better other options. You just let it go. It's not a bad option. He's not a bad player for SuperCoach. It's just better options. So not really worth.
And it looks like he's at about a 60 score, which I think we can get a lot more exciting players than that. Tohu Harris.
No prop this year. No dual. Less lucrative. He might play a role where he does get a duel later in the year. I think it's what it is. He has to play 3 games. I don't remember exactly what the rules
but
are,
he'll have to play there in the front row.
Yeah,
he's going to play at lock
probably
all year.
Very going to be unlikely with a bit more. Yeah, they've got.
He's not going to get it. I think. Especially second row. Like he was annoying to have in the front row last year because he'd be one I was first to leave out just because he looks so.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a tough season, but
might be someone we look at Origin if he can drop some cash,
a
fair bit of cash again. So, which I'm sure he will be.
Continue.
Yep. Scotty Too Hottie Sorensen, 676k. Few too many 40s for my liking when I scanned over his scores, but he's got those real big ones in him. Like he had 175 and 100. They were both against the Roosters. So I don't know whether that's just the Roosters of last year or whether he's got a little something over the Roosters and one of whoever he was marking up. I wonder probably different people he was running
right, yeah. So it would have been Egan Butcher.
They had a lot of different moving parts, so it would have been hard to predict. You'd have to go back to the games and have a look. But yeah, just interesting to note. Look, he's one of those guys that I think with Penrith have just I don't feel like their attack was out of control last year. It's somewhat just sort of capped a little bit.
Yep.
But if Penrith can start going on like a bit of a run where they just scoring big points in games, he's someone that can score a lot of tries. I think he's got that ability.
So their draw is Storm, Para, Broncos, and Roosters.
Yeah, never liked him before last year, but he really just should have made me a few eyebrow raisers last year. This guy.
I think looking at last year, obviously he had that bench role early in the season, but he's also got them. He had that 175 score that has also inflated him so massively.
Yeah, but that was not okay. So Olakau'atu's 175 was the last game of the year, and it was against the Tigers, who did not give a fuck. And Manly were just playing touch footy out there. This was a different game, man. That was like sort of somewhat in the middle of the year. It might have been around Origin time, might have been against this depleted side, but the other team still had something to play for, is the point. So
it was round 11 just before Origin. The Roosters needed wins at that point too. They were going like a...
So a bit of a different consideration for that one. I think he's still got to warrant his big score there.
I think what I like about him is he averages about 35 points in tackles, which, I mean...
He'll have more of a certain role this year too, I'd imagine, right?
Yeah, 35 points in tackles and averages about 18 to 20 points in runs.
Yeah.
So that's an average of 55 just in base.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Obviously, he averaged 66 last year, scored a few tries and all of that, but I do like Scott Sorensen.
I think he's one to wait and watch, and once that Luai wants to really light her up, and that'd be fun. Say, see you later, boys. See you later, Panthers. I'm going to take this little goosey step over to the Tigers, and look what you're missing. He might have a big year.
Yep.
And Scott Sorensen might be on the back of that. Let's see what happens.
All right. Who's next on your list? So I'm honestly looking through all these, and I put online.
So I've got Eliesa Katoa. He's someone that I don't know that I want to start with him, but I think he's someone that he's definitely going to want to be in my side again this year. Like I started with him last year when he was much cheaper. I think him and Liero were quite midi price last year to start the year. He's like starting the year at kind of keeper price. So, but like the scores he had last year. Big ones, like scores of 92, 96, 90, 95, 127, 82, and there was a few 70s in there as well. There was like a 12 and a 38, which kept his average down, but they were in injured games.
Yep.
So when we're looking at some of these other guys like Olakau'atu, who I sort of said, look, he didn't have any 90s, none in the tons, except for that big one, and only a couple of 80s. here's Eliesa Katoa, who's banging out loads of 90s. And you put me off there. Sorry, bro. What are you doing? Are you looking for some information? Okay, cool. So, yeah, look, I think that he's someone that's kind of, when the Storm are playing well, and because he had trouble staying on the field for a consecutive run of games. I think he started the year, got injured kind of sort of earlier to mid into the season, come back and then got injured again later in the year, had the eye thing, which was a real pain in the ass. But if he's like consecutively out there, I think he's like a real decent keeper. I'd probably say he's more important than the guy I was real hot on before, Briton Nikora. Although I'm keener to start with Nikora, I think that Eliesa Katoa has more upside in him than Olakau'atu and also Nikora. Long term, over an extended period.
It's funny because Katoa is someone who was a massive mid-range option last year, and I think immediately in your head you just kind of write them off because you're like, okay, they were a mid-range option last year. They were finding their feet. They're priced at probably where their peak is until they really find who they are as a player. But with Eliesa Katoa, you take out his injury-affected games. He's priced at a 64 average. You take out his injury-affected games, his average is 73.7. So there's already 8-9 points value there with Eliesa Katoa. He had like 4 or 5 injury-affected games, and there were a couple of other games where he played less minutes and still scored big points. So he played a game where he played 50 minutes and still scored 60 points. He played a game where he played 58 minutes and still scored 90 points. So,
yeah, I'm real big on him. I think he's going to be a very strong feature. He was last year. I remember last year I didn't want to sell him. I held on to him for ages. Everyone got rid of him. I'm like, no, I'm keeping him. And then he looked like he was going to come back, but then there's something to do with his eye or something, which was really stressful at the time. I ended up having to get rid of him, and then he still, when he came back, went bang, 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 scoring big ones. So, yeah, probably not going to start with him because we can't start with them all. I might have a closer look at their draw. Maybe I might start
Penrith round 1.
Yeah, look, I could potentially start with him instead of. I was like I said I'm not going to lock anything on anything certain. Nothing I say is certain until TLT. But yeah, I could see myself possibly starting with him if I think that he's just someone you could keep there rather than going, Briton Nikora, who's probably a keeper, starting with him, selling him to Fifita, and then wanting to upgrade one of these other guys to Briton Nikora soon enough anyway. Or if I just go Eliesa Katoa, put him there, he can maybe go close to matching Fifita on his day.
Yeah, or he definitely can. He's that type of player, and he excites me a lot more than someone like Briton Nikora. Briton Nikora, we saw his peak last year. I don't think we've seen Eliesa Katoa's peak.
I don't either, no.
I think he's just got to stay on the field for Melbourne in particular. The incoming, I think with Blore coming to the club, if Blore plays on the left edge, which we'll talk about Blore next week, but if he plays on the left edge, then they've got threat both sides of the field. That makes Katoa just way more dangerous for other sides to mark up against.
Who did he score that 128 against? Or the
St. George.
Okay. And that was at the back end of the year,
Yeah.
sure. So I didn't get that. And I remember in the chat, I could probably Google it and we can bring it up into the caption it, but I'm pretty sure I was like, we've not seen the best of him yet for this year. More's coming. I don't want to get rid of him.
I think anybody that knows rugby league knows we haven't seen the best of Eliesa Katoa. And at the Warriors, I think he was wasted. I think still at the Warriors, if he was there now, their style of play doesn't suit him, but Melbourne is the perfect
they sort
place.
of allowed him to play a bit of a loose character, a bit of a wild. He seemed to be like a Tasmanian devil sort of bit. He still has that in him, but they've sort of...
He's got a work rate too.
Yeah.
Only issue with Katoa for me is Cameron Murray is there at 16,000 less. And Cameron Murray's someone I'm quite more confident starting with. But that being said, Katoa...
If I only have one for the whole year, though, if I could only...
for sure.
If I was just drafting and I'd probably want Katoa for sure.
I also agree. Yeah. And that's the kind of what you got to weigh up. Do you really want to... Because you're probably going to sell Cameron Murray before the Origin period. Do you just go Eliesa Katoa now as a pod, it's very exciting. It's very exciting looking at Eliesa Katoa. Keon Koloamatangi moves to the left edge for the Rabbitohs. So he's going to accommodate Tallis Duncan moving to the right edge. Tallis Duncan I'm very excited about as well.
I feel really confused at the moment. Who was playing on the left edge from last
Jacob Host, Michael Cheekham. So I think they're getting they're trying to put something stable there.
Yeah.
I think they've probably identified a lot of chopping and changing can't be helping.
Well, on the left side, that seems really, to me, it seems more promising. But he could be the victim of decoy running a lot close to the line.
That left edge doesn't get much ball because Cody Walker always goes out the back. It's kind of like the center as well. He always gets cut out. So that's why I don't know why he's moving to the left edge. Maybe it's to accommodate Tallis Duncan, who's played a lot of right edge potentially. Tallis Duncan is more of a middle, but I think Koloamatangi is someone that in the past we would have...
Could be a defensive thing as well.
Yeah,
Maybe they think with Cam, the killer, I always forget his name. What's his name?
Campbell Graham.
Stretch, yeah. Maybe they think he's a bit more... safer. They still got Tass there. Is Tass moved?
No, Jack Whiten's moving there.
That's right. Oh, well, there you go. Jack Whiten can handle that, can't he? So
potentially.
That's not a defensive decision to move Koloamatangi over there. So they seem pretty stacked over there, don't they?
Yeah,
Jeez,
they do. It's a bit of a weird one, but I think that just... I know we're not putting lines through people, but that's a line through Koloamatangi for at least round one, and then you just see how they kind of use that, because that left edge position might turn into something that becomes...
Oh, he could be a mad thing. It could be...
Yeah, well, it might be a tactic there. Like, everyone knows they got to mark our left edge, so what if we used our second roll for once? Like, that makes us more dangerous. So they could be going in that direction this year.
Kick-owie sort of, like for the Panthers sort of thing. They're still good out the back there, but he can come through, and that's another option. You don't know what they're doing.
Well,
Koloamatangi.
Early ball to Koloamatangi, and he can offload, and that left edge can just finish the rest, or...
go inside.
Instead of doing the decoy, the short ball, and that catches them off guard because they're marking for Alex Johnson scoring.
On the burst, brother, on the burst.
On the burst, brah. Corey Hollisborough loses the dual position, 633K. But with Morgan Smithies and Zach Hosking coming to the club, he played so many minutes last year. So he's another one I kind of want to write off.
Yeah, I think less of an option for SuperCoach this year, unless he drops significantly in price. I don't think he's...
Well, I bought him at like 400K last year, and he was playing massive minutes and in the front row.
And then at the back end of the year, I feel like he kind of wasn't... You weren't overly happy with his scores. Surprise SuperCoach option of last year. I never really thought he'd be someone I identified. People who picked him up earlier like yourself and noticed it, well done. But... yeah, without the duel this year, I think it's going to be harder. He might pick it up later. We'll see what happens.
You got some others there? You've got like a list there. Maybe I should take a photo. Here, let me take a photo.
The Butcher Brothers.
Oh, Butcher Brothers.
Yeah, I've got heaps of lists, bro. Look, I did my homework, and when you wanted me to go down to 200K, I'm like, I only had 2 hours after doing, I drove to Dubbo and back last night, and I'm sitting there, past my bedtime going, I'm not going to be able to do this, man. I felt like back at high school where I'd leave my assignments to the last minute and, rock up. Here you go. This is what I got.
I still do that. I take.
So yeah, the Butcher, Nat Butcher.
Nat Butcher is priced at 63.3. That is, I wouldn't say ceiling, but that's a true average. I think at this point of the season, we're looking for a bit of value.
Yep.
We're trying to get the most points out of the cap we have.
Yeah.
So I think the value is very important.
The Roosters would need to be firing for him to be really worth it as well. He had 390s last year, but he did have 6 scores in the 30s and 40s, which they'll hurt you. And
I actually think 63, you could rely on him to average that in the first few weeks. We've got Eliesa Katoa and Cameron Murray around that price. I think these other guys have more upside, but he's someone you can plug into that position and rely on that 65.
I reckon the other guys we're looking at can also score that pretty reliably, but hopefully with more of that
over time. Well. It's just the average kind of adds up more to them because they.
So for me, not for me, but
Egan.
Yeah, Egan, not so much either.
I feel like we'll.
I don't have him written down. I don't know. He must be at a lower price point.
No, he's at 508,000.
Okay.
I think with someone like him, that that right edge this year is a massive talking point, and I think we'll go into it next week mainly because we've got Tupanua, we've got Crichton, we've got Siua Wong, who are all between 400 and 500k. Egan Butcher's in there; he's 508,000, but he wasn't an edge to start the year, and he was kind of on the edge circumstantially. I think he really grew into the position. Later in the year, he started coming off the bench, but he
playing
got
a bit more through the middle. Yeah, I don't think he's for me either.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to start there at the right edge. I think it's between Crichton, Tupanua, and Siua Wong.
So we'll brush over a couple of these ones. Bryce Cartwright's 636. The parties, I don't think until he sends out invitations, we're not going to go to the party. Don't go to the party straight away.
Although, I just want to say, IPAP.
Yep.
No, I'm not talking about IPAP as a player.
Okay, yep.
IPAP, when he was at Parramatta, he had a breakout year. Everyone was like, okay, we're not starting with him the second year because he's overpriced.
Yeah.
Maybe that right edge for Parramatta is a gold mine. And personally, I think
he does have a lot of nice attack in him, and he played a different style of card. He just there was some
there
of the
was
runs
base stats there
he
too.
Just sort of committed, did a little bit athletic stuff to twist and turn, but just his effort plays were quite impressive. Didn't always look like he was going for that silly flick or whatever, but I just think at that price, there's way better options.
Yes, but I also think if he's killing it to start the season and he's an affordable price and you can get him. Don't just ignore it for too long, because we've seen the last 3 years that right edge position for Parramatta, it's just turned into a gold mine for SuperCoach points.
Yeah, for me, he's definitely I'd need to see it and be really impressed by a particular game or two in a row and go, geez, this guy's here for another year, isn't he?
Yep.
To jump on him. So we skip over Preston, gun from last year, cheapie. I don't think we paid $6.15 for him this year. Barnett, Jewel, front row prop, which is kind of cool. We're kind of looking for some of those. I can't see me starting just the price. I want to start with cheaper guys in the front row, which we talked about. Can't fit him in. Nano is someone I do want to talk about. Teague Wildren, everyone seems to be always keen on him. I'm never really that
just because of the price.
Teague.
I think he's a bit overpriced this year.
Yeah.
Yep.
But Nanai,
average 57 last year.
I really think he's a great option for SuperCoach. I think maybe the fact that the Cowboys were a bit underdone last year, it didn't really translate so well for his scoring. I've just got, looking at his scores, he's just got way too many 30s and 40s in him. But when Cowboys are on a run and he's sort of jumping for balls near the line and getting little short balls near the line and stuff, I think that's the time to jump on. But you just kind of need to see the Cowboys killing it first, because otherwise he could potentially he's a weird player. He could potentially start the season really good and make money, or he could even lose money. You know what I mean? So there's not many players around that price would make too much or drop too much, but he's one of those players that you don't know which way it's going to go.
I've always been not a massive Nanai fan for SuperCoach. I started with him the year he popped off, but I think I sold him pretty early because I just saw...
Feels risky sometimes, doesn't it? You feel a bit nervous playing him?
It does, but he's that type of player that you could wait 10 rounds for him to pop off, or you could wait... He could pop off over the next 10 rounds. So
might be a time where his price is right, the Cowboys look like they're in the right state of form, and that'd be the time.
I'm very excited for the Cowboys this year. I think they're going to start well. He's based on a 57 average, and you take away his injury-affected games, HIA-affected games, 64. So there's already 7 points value there, and he didn't string a full season together. He only played 13 games, and the fact that he only played 13 games means he didn't get much of a chance to get them big 100 scores. He had a score of 106. He had some other scores as well, but I think the fact that he didn't play as much...
Didn't get to get his own momentum sort of flowing as well.
Exactly.
Yeah,
No, it could
Was
be.
the year prior, or maybe even, I think it was the year prior, and there was just games where it just looked like if they were anywhere near the line, they were just going to kick it, and no matter what, he'd just catch it and score. Like, it was ridiculous.
That's really funny because he averaged 52 up until round 10 in 2022, and then he went on 91, 75, 77, 70, 104, 158.
Yeah, so I think it's, as we sort of identified, you get him when he goes, the run starts.
Obviously, it's going to be tempting hearing the fact that he can score big to start with him, but I think it's more the case he's someone that if he's going bad at the start of the season, don't just forget about that. You can maybe go one of your mid-rangers in round 5 or 6 to him very early and just before anyone else does it. And then that could be the guy that you run with till round 13 and everyone's getting him in round
and people will be
7.
off him because they're like, oh, he's got too many 40s there.
Exactly.
And which is exactly what I'm saying now. But then when you do get him on that right run, it's happy days. Yeah. Sick. Hudson Young and Zach Hosking, I'm just kind of not, at their prices, I'm not overly keen on the Raiders this year. I said the Tigers would probably come last this year, and I've thought him, like, just looking at lineup and stuff, maybe the Raiders could, but I feel like I'm giving them a bit of disrespect because I didn't think they'd find their way into, they still found their way into the 8 last year. They're very competitive and gritty little unit. When they lose, they don't lose by much. When they win, they don't win by much. So although they seem like they've lost a bit in Jack Whiten, they're probably not going to be bottom side, but they've got that potential. I think
to them, their roster screams spoon side to me. But also their forward pack's so gritty. They've got Seb Chris. They've got all these experienced outside backs as well. Like, I don't think they get the wooden spoon by any means, but their roster suggests that they do. Like, they don't have a superstar. Yeah. They don't have any strike attack. Yeah. I think their defense is going to hold up, but someone like Zach Hosking, couldn't start with him because I'm not confident 80 minutes is going to be there. He's priced at 50.
Let's say he was playing 80. Let's just assume he did.
Oh, his value.
His value. And the thing is, it is a bit of a minutes thing. He was outside Nath for quite a fair bit. Early on, we jumped on him real early last year. We saw one game, we're like, we've seen enough. Yep. We're getting him.
Oh, I jumped on him before you did 1 week. He scored,
you may have, yep.
I'm pretty sure he scored a try and scored like 88 against
look, I don't want to compare dick sizes, but look, it
was against the Raiders.
Yeah, you may have jumped on a week earlier. The point is that he had scored, and there was a bit of attacking there. Outside Nath, you'd think there might have been more of that to come. It sort of slowed off, and so I'm not expecting there to be better attack outside. He's
Fogarty. Fogarty on the right.
Fogarty's moved. Is Fogarty? Oh no, Frawley's moved on, isn't it?
Frawley, Whiten have both moved on, so their 5'8's going to be like KO weeks.
Dog. Okay.
But Hudson Young plays left, and Hosking will play right. But that's if Elliot Whitehead comes off the bench. So even if Hosking starts on the right edge, Whitehead might come on and play 50 minutes, and vice versa. So Hosking's probably not an option for me this year. At least until there's an injury or something.
And his role then has to be forced to play 80.
Because he's a guy who he'll get 50, no doubt.
Love his workload, so that's why it's someone to keep an eye on.
Yeah, the fact that he is on the right, Fogarty is the better half in the side, and he's the one guy who I think is massively underrated. I think he's a great halfback. Like, I think if any side had Fogarty and they've got the rest of their roster is really good,
he'd complement them.
For sure. So I like Fogarty and I like Hosking playing alongside Fogarty.
Can we stick with the Fog Dog?
I like the Fog Dog. Last one, Dylan Lucas. Tyson Frizzell is tipped to be training on the left edge, and Dylan Lucas, 502,000. 54, based on a 54 average. So in my opinion, he's probably a bit overpriced because he played a lot of games late last year, but what are your thoughts on Dylan Lucas? I've seen a lot of hype about him.
I haven't seen enough of him play. I don't have enough of an opinion. I've got from the 5 games he played last year, there was 6 games. I think 5 of them were over 70 minutes. There was like 4 80-minute games and 1 73 or something. Scores of 30, 67, 58. the 95's lovely, and I think, what was that, a 101, or is that just a
No.
lol? Have I got lol there?
No,
61.
61, yeah.
The 61 looks like a 101. Okay, so yeah, not enough for me to... I know that I think the Knights are going to be a pretty good side this year, so might be something worth looking at some point. I'd maybe like to see a little bit of a price drop or him to score consecutively before I consider him.
I need a bigger sample size. He debuted in round 15, only scored 31 then, and then 16, 17, 26 and 27 is when he played.
The dual centre wing second row's nice. That's something to note.
It is nice, but 500k, I think it's a bit much
not
for someone
for me
like
to
Dylan
start.
Lucas.
Yeah.
All right, I think
next week to come, there's going to be a lot of people wanting to just more interesting players, more relevant to who we probably will be plugging more players into our side. We've got Lukey, Kickow, Fermor, Siwa.
Don't give them all away.
You know, there's all the names. There's Bloor. There's names to come. We'll discuss in a bit more detail what involvement they might have, and if they do have that involvement, then you probably need to have this guy, that sort of stuff. So that'll be a good chat, I think, next week.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think this whole podcast today, we've talked for an hour and 10 minutes, and I think that's all to decide who's going in this one position.
Yeah.
Because I think the rest is...
I thought we've got a little bit closer. Had we just brushed over all of those guys, we may just be... You just make a simple choice. You go, I'm going with... Or I might just go, I'm going with Nikora. We're the right guy, and I'm not saying it is, but it might be Katoa, but we just didn't do enough deep diving. You know what I mean?
And SuperCoach is all about being adaptive, and one of these players are going to come out and absolutely brain it to start the year.
Yeah.
And... If we didn't go over it, do our due diligence.
Not to say we're definitely going to nail it and pick up that right guy.
No, but
knowing that you've done your homework, once after round one goes, at least you go, well, look, I did my best. I dug.
Yep.
You don't go, oh, well, I should have looked a little harder. So at least you've done the work. And I mean, a lot of this is going to change, and we will need to look closer at this position when it comes closer.
For sure. After today, off the dome, who are your top three that you're excited about that we've talked about today?
Olakau'atu, Katoa, and your boy. And Nikora as well. Yeah, those three probably the ones. There might be a mid-era guy that...
Yeah, well, mine is Katoa. Olakau'atu I'm a bit down on now, so I think Katoa, Murray, and Nanai I'm very interested in now.
Yeah, you've made me a little bit more interested in Murray. I've never owned Murray as much as the average bear.
Yep, cool. All right, cheers for tuning in, guys. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube, subscribe to the podcast platform feeds. Really helps us out. We peaked at number 30 last week on the Spotify charts, which is crazy because we get less listeners on Spotify. And it was funny, you were saying, do I post a Spotify link or the Apple link? And I'm like, no, I post the Apple link. We get more listeners on Apple. We peaked at like 34 last week on Apple, so we're doing well in both. So please keep hitting that follow button. If you leave a 5-star rating, that's going to be good for us too. And SuperCoach Championship rings are back on board this year. I think we're going to do a giveaway before the start of the season for that, because it kind of fizzles out to the end of the year, and a lot of people who put in the hard yards earlier kind of fallen off by that point of the season. So I want someone to have a ring to give away in their head-to-head finals. So we'll give it away at the start of the year. One of the requirements will be to subscribe to the YouTube, the podcast platform feeds, and also leaving a 5-star rating. Like yeah. So to be eligible, you're going to have to do all of them 3-4 things. So make sure to do that before we announce what's going to happen. But cheers for tuning in, and I can't wait for next week.
Yeah, I can't wait for the start of the season. But yeah, I'm looking forward to just doing the homework this year. Last year I was a little nonchalant and was just wait till TLT, I'll take everything in then. It was very cramped.
Yeah.
Although I did have all the information, I was, well, what am I going to do? And I felt scattered in my thought. So this year I feel at peace that I've looked at stuff. It might still get scattery as we get closer, but I think that'll create a little bit more clarity for myself and hopefully for you and the listeners at home as well.
We've also gone through a plethora of options already. the second half of second row is going to be tough, and so centre wing is going to be in depth.
Oh,
as well.
yeah. And I think that those are the two positions where we really get ahead to start the year, because I think we'll probably all end up with similar.
Yeah, because there's so many options.
Yeah, as well. Yeah.
All right, cheers for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Actually, we'll see you on Thursday for the Questions podcast.
Cool.